Hello everyone, my name is Kishan Agarwal. I am from CSCB. Today I am presenting my concept video of Python programming and my topic is for loop using sequences. So let's begin our discussion with what are sequences. There are mainly four types of sequences. They are string, list, tuple and dictionary in Python, and range is an object. Byte arrays and byte sequences are also frequently used in Python. So let's begin with each type of sequences. So what is a string in Python? String represents a group of characters. Strings are important because most of the data that we use in daily life will be in the form of strings. For example, the names of persons, their addresses, vehicle numbers, their credit card numbers, etc. are all strings. In Python, the string str data type represents a string. Since every string comprises several characters, Python handles strings and characters almost in the same manner. There is no separate data type to represent individual character in Python. So we can say a string in Python is a sequence of characters. It is a derived data type. Strings are immutable. That means that once the strings are defined, they cannot be changed or modified. So Python strings can be created with single quotes or double quotes or triple quotes. When we use triple quotes, strings can span several lines without using any escape character. In Python, strings are stored as individual characters in a contiguous memory location. The benefit of using strings is that it can be accessed from both the directions, that is forward and backward. Both forward as well as backward indexing are provided using strings in Python. Forward indexing starts with the 0 and backward indexing starts with the integers -1, -2, -3 and so on. So the next sequence is list. Python list is a data structure which is used to store various types of data in Python. A list is similar to an array that consists of group of elements or items. Just like an array, a list can store elements, but there is one major difference between an array and a list. An array can store only one type of element, whereas a list can store different kinds of or different types of elements. Hence, lists are more versatile and useful than an array. Perhaps lists are the most used data type in Python programs. Python lists are mutable, that is, Python will not create a new list if we modify any element of the list. It works as a container that holds other objects in a given order. We can perform various operations like insertion and deletion on lists. A list can be composed by storing a sequence of different types of values separated by commas. Python list is enclosed between square brackets and elements are stored in the index bias with starting with the index 0. Now let's see what are tuples in Python. A tuple is a Python sequence which stores a group of elements or items. Tuples are similar to list, but the main difference is tuples are immutable, whereas list is mutable. Since tuples are immutable, once we create a tuple, we cannot modify its element. Hence, we cannot perform operations like append, extend, insert, remove, pop, and clear on tuples. Tuples are generally used to store data which should not be modified and retype the data on demand. So, as discussed, the tuple is a sequence of immutable Python objects. Tuples are sequences just like list. The main difference between the tuple and list is that the tuple cannot be changed unlike list. So tuples are represented using parentheses, whereas list is represented as square brackets. So tuple is similar to list, only the difference is the list is enclosed between square brackets and tuples is parentheses. And list is mutable, whereas tuples are immutable. Next, we see Python range function. Python range function generates the immutable sequence of numbers starting from the given start integer to the stop integer. The range function is a built-in function that returns a range object that consists a series of integer numbers. which we can iterate using a for loop. In Python, using a for loop with range, we can repeat an action a specific number of times. The general syntax of range function is range in parenthesis start comma stop comma step. Step is optional. If we want to increment the number with more than 1, the default value of step is 1. Otherwise, if we want to include, we can include. So as mentioned in syntax, it takes 3 arguments. Out of the 3, 2 are optional. The start and step are optional arguments and the stop is the mandatory argument. Next, loops in Python. While loop. In Python, while loop is used to execute number of statements or body till the specified condition is true. Once the condition is false, the control will come out of the loop. While loops are constructed like so. The general syntax of while loop is while a condition which is true and the block of statements to be performed. So here it is given a flow chart. Start with a while loop enter and the condition for while loop, and it will check the condition is true or false. If it is true, it will perform a block of statements, otherwise it will come out of the loop and execute the other statements which are written below the while loop. Next, firstly the value in the variable is initialized. Secondly, the condition or expression in the while is evaluated. Consequently, if condition is true, the control enters in the body and execute all the statements. If the condition or expression passed results in false, then the control exits the body and straight away control goes to the next instruction after body of the while. Thirdly, in case condition was true, having completed all the statements, the variable is incremented or decremented, having changed the value of variable. Step second is followed. This process continues till the expression or condition becomes false. Finally, rest of the code after the body is executed. So there are mainly 3 steps. First, we have to initialize the value of the variable, and then we have to write the condition in while loop, and then the block of statements to be performed. And again, we have to increment the value of the variable in the while loop, within the while loop. Next, coming to for loop, the main difference between for loop and while loop is we do not have to initialize variable in for loop, whereas we have to initialize the variable in while loop, and we do not have to increment the variable in while loop, whereas so a for loop is used for iterating over a sequence, that is either a list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set or a string. This is less like the keyword in other programming languages and works more like an iterator method as found in other object-oriented programming languages. With the for loop, we can execute a set of statements once for each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. Python for loop syntax is for variable in sequence. Then the block of statements should be written after the colon with proper indentation. So what are the steps? Firstly, the first step value is be assigned in the variable. Secondly, all the statements in the body of the loop are executed with the same value. Thirdly, once step second is completed, then variable is assigned the next value in the sequence and step second is repeated. Finally, it continues till all the values in the sequence are assigned in the variable and processed. So this is the for loop flow chart. So here we can see in detail about for loop. A for loop is used for iterating over a sequence and iterable like range, list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set or a string. So for I in range, for example, it is given for I in range, whereas range is sequence and I is variable, and this is the general syntax. And there are written statement 1, statement 2 to statement n. which are given indentation and then else part is written. So let's see, range is definite iteration, that is total 5 times because range is given as 5, and body of the for loop execute till the last item of the sequence, that is till 5 times, and indentation loop bodies must be indented properly. Next, else part. Else block is optional, executes only when for loop executes normally. That means if the after iterating all the sequences, it will come to the while loop. That means when the condition becomes false. Next, looping through a string. Even strings are iterable objects. They contain a sequence of characters. Example, loop through the letters in the word banana. So we can use a for loop to iterate and print each letter of banana. Since banana is a string and string is an iterable object, that is, it is a sequence of characters. So we can iterate it using a for loop. And the syntax is for x in banana, print x. So it will print all the characters of banana separately. Looping through a list. In case we want to use a traditional for loop which iterates from number x to number y, so we can write as, we can initiate first list, we can write the elements in list, and then we can assign length equal to, length is a variable and we are assigning the length of list to the length, and then we are using a for loop, that is for I in range, that is length, and print list of I. We are using index method to print the elements of the list. Next, looping through a tuple. You can loop through the tuple items by using a for loop. Example, iterate through the items and print the values. Here we have taken a tuple, this tuple, and we have stored apple, banana, cherry in it, and we are using for loop to print the elements of the tuple. Next, you can also loop through the tuple items by referring to their index number, that is, use the range and length function to create a suitable iterable. Example, if we want to print all the items by referring to their index number, we can initiate as it is this tuple as apple, banana, cherry, and then we can use for I in range, length of the tuple, and print using index number, that is this tuple, and in square brackets we are giving the variable I. So to break the statement, we can stop the loop before it has looped through all the items. We can use break statement in for loop. If we want to break or we want to stop a loop for a particular condition, we can use break statement in a for loop. So exit the loop when x is banana. That means if x is equals to banana, we should leave the group. That means we do not want to print or we do not want to do the execution after banana. So we are initiating fruits as apple, banana, cherry in a list, and for x in fruit, print x, and we have given condition if x equal to banana, then break. So it will print apple and banana. Then since x is banana, it will break. That means it will come out of the loop and execute the other block of statements. So it will not print cherry. The continue statement. With the continue statement, we can stop the current iteration of the loop and continue with the next. That means if we write continue, it will not perform the operations or functions which are written below it. It will initiate to the loop. So if we do not want to print banana, so we can use fruits equal to apple, banana, cherry. For x in fruits, if x equal to banana, continue and then print x. So it will print apple, and when is equal to banana, when x is equal to banana, it will not print banana, because as we have written continue statement, it will initiate in the for loop when x is banana, and it will then print cherry. That means banana is skipped here. So the range function, as we have discussed already, we can use it in for loop also. The loop through a set of code a specified number of times. We can use the range function. The range function returns a sequence of numbers starting from 0 by default and incremented by 1 default and ends at a specified number that we have to mention. Example using the range function for x in range 6. So here we have not given any starting value and the step value. So it will by default take as 1 and step value, and starting value it will take it as 0. So print x means it will print numbers from 0 to 5. Next, pass statement. What is pass statement? For loop cannot be empty, but if you for some reason have a for loop with no content, put in pass statement to avoid getting an error. So we do not want to write any particular statement in the for loop, we can use just simply pass statement. So it do nothing, but it will execute just like comments, but it will execute. So else part in for loop. The else keyword in a for loop specifies a block of code to be executed. When the loop is finished, that is, print all the numbers from 0 to 5 and print a message when the loop has ended. So if you want to print a message after the for loop, after the execution of for loop, we can use else part. That is, for x in range 6, print x. So x will print from 0 to 5, that is iterable for loop, and then it will print else part, that is finally finished after finishing the execution part of for loop. Now coming to nested loop. A nested loop is a loop inside a loop. And nested loop means loop inside a loop. The inner loop will be executed one time for each iteration of the outer loop. Example, print each adjective for every fruit. Adjective equal to red, big, tasty. We have initiated the red adjective, that is red, big, tasty, and we have also initiated fruits as list, that is apple, banana, cherry. So we want to print every adjective with every fruit, each adjective with every fruit. So we are using adjective as outer loop and fruits as inner loop. So for x in adjective, then in that loop we are using for loop. For y in fruits, print x comma y. So first x value will be red and y value will be apple. So red apple, red banana, red cherry, then big apple, big banana, big cherry, tasty apple, tasty banana, tasty cherry will be printed as it is. So this is the use of nested loop. Thank you.